everything that seems to be related to preventing it from happening to us seems to really draw people to true crime, especially women.
Some of them know that, like, you know, that who I am. You know what I mean? Like, the real me.
Yeah.
Not all of them do.
The Lee County Sheriff's Office says that Wade Wilson has received 3,903 messages since June 12th of this year. One person said, "I feel attracted to him," or "Love you, Wade."
I support Wade, firstly because I personally do not believe in the death penalty as an option.
Wade Wilson is charged with killing 2 Cape Coral women. It's been nearly 4 years since Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz were murdered.
And they're probably very jealous of you. Not jealous of being where he is, but jealous of the strength he shows.
He said he got on top of her and choked her.
We today are still attracted to the things that would have helped us survive back in our ancestral past. Who is more dominant than a killer?
He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
He looks like a really awesome dude.
Violent, aggressive, tried to pull me in the car physically.
Everybody has past, and nobody's the same.
And so I got back in the car and put my seatbelt on, and that's when he started choking me. He had bit my face.
Consciously, it makes no sense for a woman to be attracted to a killer, especially who has killed other women. Our subconscious mind doesn't always make that distinction.
A really pretty younger girl, and I don't blame her for falling for it.
I could resonate with him on that one so much because I feel like he is such a resilient man,
I'm just gonna grab you and roll over like a little teddy bear and then let you just drill my.
I know it's hard, and I can imagine it feeling quite lonely, but knowing that everyone out there is supported him, and he's got a lot of support, and there's loads of people.
Vickery used Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, and Chris Watts as examples.
And I can assure you, we all are going to be waiting for you open arms.
And I will be there at the execution. That's a promise.
We are all out here praying, manifesting, hoping, signing, trying to donate.
Wilson was convicted on June 12th for the murders of 35-year-old Christine Melton and 43-year-old Diane Ruiz.
She was precious, not just to me, to everyone who knew her. She was a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a niece, and a cousin. She was loved, and her life had value.
She would have said, "Let's get this guy out of here together."
My mom didn't get the chance to see me accomplish. My mother will never get the chance to see me get married, get to see me graduate college as a first generation graduate, get to see me get my first real job.
She didn't think I gave her a kiss goodbye.
Had you?
Of course.
Some women have this fascination with the killers themselves. Why?
I just think it's stupid, really.
The sheriff's office had to reject 163 of those pictures. Let's just say that they were inappropriate.
I don't really feel like he's expressing remorse. I probably wouldn't recommend reaching out to him.
What I'm certain at is whatever he had been accused of, he has not done that.
Did you kill Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz?
No, absolutely not. I choked her out until she died, until she was dead.
Wade Wilson is not the first killer to receive attention from women, and he won't be the last.
But Wade, oh Wadey, you're one hell of a fit guy.
How do you explain that?
You thought when I told you I'm a killer, I was lying?
Yeah, I did, actually.
Well, I wasn't lying.
Hey there, nice to see ya. In today's episode, I'll be talking about a chaotic mercenary who just couldn't shut up. A military man who would undergo dramatic transformations in a secret government program. His mutant healing factor would allow him to... Wait a second. Sorry, wrong Wade Wilson. Sorry, I just had to. This one is less of a merc with a mouth and more of a perp from the south. Unfortunately, this one is far more lame and has led to irreparable damage to real people. I'll cover the life of this Joker and how he ended the lives of 2 women who were treasures to their friends and family, now stolen by a common thief. And for some reason, this loser-ass Lothario has a growing fan base who's actively sending him money as he awaits his death sentence. So let's strip this guy down so I can show you the monster that's lying underneath. So I'll be picking apart articles, interviews, phone calls, interrogations, and footage of the trial to lay it all out for you in black and white and red. And thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon. Anthony Testastica was born on May 20th, 1994 in sunny Tallahassee, Florida. His birth is an unexpected one for his parents. They are both only teenagers, around the ages of 14 or 15. They're already in dire straits, and this new bundle of joy will soon be a burden. Luckily, there's another couple to take Anthony in. His grandmother knew the couple through the church, and they were excited to add another member to the family. Steve and Candy Wilson had 2 daughters of their own, but were happy to have another in their fold. And it would be easy to provide for the newborn. Anthony's classmates would say that he had the world given to him. He mentions the couple having greyhounds and a nice car, indicating the Wilsons' wealth. But they weren't all about the material world. He doesn't say how. He mentions them being super friendly, church-going people who had their head in the right place and who meant well while wanting better for their son. Whatever that means. All just general pleasantries. And there really isn't too much more info in regards to them besides Anthony's biological father mentioning them being outstanding people. Wade's adopted mom seems nice enough in her interview.
I'm Candy Wilson. I am Wade's adopted mother, and Wade is my 3rd baby. We love him so much, more than you can ever imagine. I hope and I pray every night. Almost that it's a nightmare that I'll wake up from this.
During the early portion of the adoption, Candy's a worried mess. Anthony's mother would have a chance to get him back. When it came closer and closer to the date, Candy feared that she would have a change of heart. But she never heard anything, and their new son would be an official part of the family. And there continued to be no contact between Anthony and his biological parents except for a single letter that his mother wrote. She gave it to the Wilsons, and then told them to give it to Anthony when they felt ready. It would explain why he was put up for adoption. The Wilsons decided to wait until his 18th birthday when they felt that he could process it better. But in the meantime, since he was officially a part of the family, he had to be given a new name by that new family. Candy says that one of her daughters said that it had to start with a W. Obviously, being as much of a fan of alliteration as I am, and so Wade was decided on. So Anthony Testastica became Wade Stephen Wilson. In a letter to the court, Candy describes Wade as a joyful child who loved his parents. And in an interview that she would later give, Candy mentions that all the teachers found him to be a good kid and that he often picked flowers for Candy. She mentions Wade taking care of her as she got older and grew close to his sisters, loving to cook meals for them. And Candy mentions a story where Wade was supposed to come home, but when the bus arrived, he wasn't on it. Candy went into a frantic search. In the meantime, Wade came back with the school bus, and the school reached out to her. There had been a schoolboy that was scared to get on the bus, not Wade's bus. And so Wade boarded the bus with him just to keep him company. He just wanted to help out. And when the bus driver realized a kid was still on the bus, he took the kid back to school. Candy takes this as a showing of Wade's caring nature, but it could also be a showing of his impulsive behavior forming. And Wade seemed pretty cared for in his home. He was even aware that he was adopted, but still didn't know why. Regardless, he had found a family that welcomed him, and everything seemed to go fine. That is, until the hormones and restructuring of the brain when puberty kicks in. Candy said that Wade went through an identity crisis around the age of 14 or 15. He asked why his parents didn't want him, which is a solid question, and also kind of strange that it's around the same age that they had him. Candy offered to take Wade to meet his biological parents, but Wade declined. Maybe he was afraid of the answers that he would find. Rejection, when you're already feeling ostracized, is rough. She eventually shows Wade the letter written by his biological mother, and this seemed to satisfy him for now. Candy also mentions them moving around a lot, and I'm guessing Steve Wilson has ties to the military, as Wade went to Lawton Childs High School. It received a purple star for military families. Either that or they're already looking for a way to curb his trouble. But this would also explain why they're constantly moving. This would leave Wade without any footing besides his family, never truly feeling a part of something for too long. Wade continued to have his identity crisis. Candy's peers told her it was just a hormonal kid thing. Which, good job on minimizing it. I'm sure that things always work out just fine when you ignore them. Spoiler, it does not work out fine. The good news is that Candy would take him to a child psychologist. Here, he would find a new internal struggle.
If we feel something's wrong with him, then maybe there is. Let's go to a child's psychologist. So we did, and of course, that's when the diagnosis Wade was bipolar.
And before we start, I just want to say that I have no degrees of psychology and I'm just a layman. And sometimes I even clock in as an idiot from time to time. I am not bipolar, and even though I've known those that have it, I do not extensively understand their plight. However, I can already see correlations between Wade's diagnosis and his future behaviors. It becomes onset around adolescence, which is an amazing time whenever hormones start picking up. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, those with the symptoms can experience periods where they go through an intense bout of emotion, with changes to sleep and activity levels. People will also engage in behaviors that tend to be out of character for them, usually without realizing the consequences of those actions. These are known as mood episodes. I imagine he was going through some of these, as it explains why we get this extreme duality of a sweet little boy and a troublemaking monster. Because as much as Candy paints Wade as a walking family circus strip, his classmates would say he was even more of an Eldritch Garfield. An anonymous classmate of Wade's told Newsweek that she would often eat lunch with him and his friends. Except no one was eating. They just passed drugs around to each other, getting all his Wheaties in. He'd also hang around the side of her high school with her boyfriend, getting stoned early in the AM. Whoa! You're telling me that a teen was experimenting with drugs? I'm so surprised. Can you tell how surprised I am? Do you see the surprise?
Do you see the surprise?
But this behavior may have only been driving the spiral. Many recent studies are showing that cannabis can exacerbate disorders in specific people and bring about certain episodes. He wasn't doing himself any favors. Wade continued to rebel against authority and act out, and you can already start to see the factors why, between moving around, adoption, and being bisexual in Catholic and military schools. It's just an explosive cocktail in regards to your feelings of adequacy and your confidence towards your place in the world. Not much seemed to reassure that confidence, but instead told him to bury it just as he tried to bury his condition. Candy said that Wade took meds to deal with his disorder, and he was great when he was medicated. And at some point, Wade decided that he was good and didn't need to take his meds anymore. As we can assess, this isn't good. His rebellion eventually got him kicked out of school for catching a toilet paper roll on fire while he was lighting up in the bathroom. Another anonymous classmate talks about Wade stealing his parents' car and disappearing for 3 days. And it's worth mentioning that mood episodes can last for days. And a third anonymous classmate would say that kids trying to have a future wouldn't associate with him. Wade would trespass and break into cars even if there was nothing to steal. He just liked doing it. A real stool hand Luke. There's yet another classmate who mentions money going missing from her backpack during class. She told the teacher, and the teacher had everyone wait in class until someone confessed. The bell rang and no one fessed up, so the teacher let everyone go. The classmate was sure that Wade had done it. She confronted Wade and he just mocked her. Nothing was ever admitted to. Granted, she did say that she dated him later and he cheated on her all the time. And I have so many questions on why she dated him if she thought that he stole from her. Was the flag not red enough? I can tell you that it wasn't. She said that she was still taking calls from him as recently as May 2024 while Wade was still in jail. The breaking point being some hurtful remarks that she refuses to disclose. And I have even more questions about that one. Regardless, Wade's descent would only pick up speed with age and he'd continue his run-ins with the law. And he'd ride that rain-slick precipice all the way down. Wade turns 18 in 2012 and begins a long career in and out of prison. He starts off strong. Some of the early ones include assault, burglary, child cruelty, and firearms. And after that, he continues to be arrested each year, usually spending a few months incarcerated. Most of these are for various forms of theft. Some petty, some not. And at some point, his adoptive parents have enough and move north, creating a barrier of states between them. But at the same time, it doesn't really seem to affect Wade, who wouldn't be in contact with them for another 10 years. he'd find himself in deeper trouble in 2015. Wade is arrested for battery and kidnapping. A woman tells investigators that Wade had her in an SUV after they had met at a party. Wade denies anything had happened. There didn't seem to be enough evidence to convince the 6-person jury. They acquitted him of the charges, which is fair if there wasn't enough evidence to show, but if his later victims are to be believed, this sounds like a pattern of behavior that will repeat in the future. In 2018, Wade finds himself in his first murder trial, and he wasn't in the role that you'd expect. Mike Williams died in what had seemed like a boating accident, except something seemed off. And so the investigation went further and found that it actually wasn't an accident, it was a murder. Brian Winchester would be the one to pull off that murder. The investigators would tie Brian to Mike's wife, Denise. It looks like Denise and Brian had been hooking up on the side and wanted to live happily off Mike's life insurance. Fortunately, the evidence would show and the trial would go underway. And during this trial, Wade's name would come up. Brian was locked up during this time, and his cellmate just happened to be this knockoff ninja. Brian says that he had asked Wade to fabricate evidence for the case. Wade was more than willing to oblige. Brian testifies that Wade had even offered to kill Denise Williams, just to make the problem go away. Nothing comes to fruition, and Denise is sentenced to life for first-degree murder and conspiracy in death. And it'd also be during one of these stints in jail that Wade would lose his teeth. Wade joins with a white supremacy group while in jail. Despite this group not being down with the man-on-man action, Wade couldn't say no to the booty. They catch him slapping skin with another prisoner and retaliate in brutal fashion. They grab Wade and kick the ever-living crap out of him, including kicking out his front teeth. And I imagine he originally joined them to have some protection in prison while also having a pipeline to drugs, a side business to these gangs in jail. They'd leave a lasting reminder that despite Wade being a part of their ranks, he would never be accepted as one of them. Horrible ideals edging out social contracts. This is also not the last time that Wade would find himself in one of these groups. We'll get into more of that later. In the meantime, Wade's exes have some damning things to say.
He kidnapped me and almost killed me.
Kelly Matthews has been very vocal about her past with Wade. She says that at first, Wade wasn't violent and everything seemed great. She also has her own storied past. She also says that when she first met Wade that he was in a halfway house, something that she wasn't aware of at the time. And you'll see that truth is relative when it comes to Wade. When Kelly finally found out, Wade told Kelly that he was in the halfway house because his dad said he had to be in one. Not sure which dad. It could also be a total lie, but I could see Wade being told to stay there. He might get some help, and his dad could still provide him with financial assistance. Possible nuggets of truth hiding in the haze. Either way, it seemed the halfway house didn't turn out so well and Wade gave in to his cravings. Kelly says that this is when he started to get violent, always with the drugs. He'd do a ton of cocaine. He'd also get very protective over his nose candy, preferring to smoke it out of a makeshift crack pipe if the one Kelly found was any indicator. Kelly talks about having enough and grabbing his backpack to look for the drugs. She locks herself in a room while she searches. This sets Wade off and he kicks down the door. He starts hitting Kelly while she fights back. She eventually gets a table and throws it. This would not be the end of their violent eruptions. Things continued to be toxic until Kelly got a no-contact order. She said that Wade would manipulate her and cut her off from her family. Classic abuse behavior. And he'd steal from her constantly while also cheating. Kelly didn't even know his real name until she saw some of Wade's mail. Wade had been going by his middle name, but Wade's name wasn't the only one on that mail. So was his daughter's. Add deadbeat dad to Wade's list of characteristics. Wade tells Kelly that it wasn't actually his daughter, but his friend's. Sure, you were just holding it for them. Totally believable. Kelly says she feels like an idiot. She keeps forgiving him because she thinks he's hot. And this would be until she finally got her no-contact court order. Except she couldn't abide by it and met up with Wade after a call. Kelly picks Wade up and they head off to their destination. Kelly says that an argument ensues. They pull over and Wade attacks her, including trying to choke her with his hands. A Wade Wilson signature, and he takes it up a notch with a bite to her chin. At some point during the attack, Wade gets out a knife and threatens Kelly. He makes her curl up in the passenger floor of the car. From there, this waste of space cuts her clothes off and defiles her while holding the knife to the base of her neck from the driver's seat. When he finishes, he starts the car up and continues driving. Kelly is made to stay curled up in the floorboard. Wade continues to hold the knife to her neck while Kelly endures the thought that she might not make it out alive. Relief would eventually come when they reached their destination. Kelly informs the authorities of the terror that she went through, but they do little to help her. A report is made where they list the obvious injuries and the manic state that Wade was in. They list all the reasons to look further into it and then swerve at the last second. They are dropping the kidnapping and the rape investigation. They were also dropping all of the charges. The reasoning was that she had a no contact order, and so she shouldn't have contacted him. And with her criminal past and the cops allegedly citing weird sex stuff being involved, it was over before it started.
He was like, no, this is hearsay. Like, you don't have any probable cause.
And I swear, if I see another story where a cop decides to drop the investigation because he got the ickies from some weird sex stuff, I don't know. I'm gonna get real mad. I don't know. This kind of injustice just makes me go insane. Just to give you an idea where I'm coming from, I had a drunk lawyer total my car without enough insurance to cover it. There are so many reasons in the report why the cops should have continued the investigation, but just chose to let it go. The smell of alcohol, the bloody forehead from hitting the steering wheel, and the smashed vehicle. None of it amounted to anything. I'm still picking up my life after what that asshole did. And this sounds like the same kind of grunt work. Like lazy to me. And the girlfriend that Wade had at the time of his murder spree was another subject of his tirades. Melissa Montanez, also known as Mila, says he was very charming and social. He was also a personal trainer who was helping her get in shape. Like all the other women, she fell for him instantly. And like all the others, she said he was very nice at first, but then got more violent over time. Mila talks about Wade's first day in Cape Coral. She waits in her car while Wade goes into a convenience store. When he comes back, he has an unexpected prize. A whole bag of that Molly Cyrus.
It's true. Like, I was pumping gas, and he went to get a Black and Mild, and he came back with a bag of Molly. Like, he doesn't know anybody in the town. Like, he just gets drugs like that.
Which, while resourceful, seems like a big red flag. Of course, things would only get worse with Mila. She would accuse him of taking advantage of her the same way that he did Kelly, degrading and defiling her in the exact same way. She takes him to court, but ends up dropping the charges. I think it's more out of love for Wade than an actual admission of deceit. In her interrogation video, she even talks about getting back with him despite knowing that he's probably still violent.
He beat me up and I put him in jail here. And then I didn't want to go through the court, so I dropped the charges, but he had a charge on West Palm for second-degree felony.
All this paints a picture of a career criminal who can't control his impulses. And in my research, I was amazed at how the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Because you see, Wade's biological father also had quite the record. Even though Steve says that he's not a violent person, his first arrest would say otherwise. At 23, he was in the slammer for various theft charges, including grand theft. There are also 2 battery charges, one on a law officer and the other related to domestic violence. This seems to be the only violent charge. All of this seems to stem from a similar place to his son, drug addiction.
He was where I once was. He was in active addiction. He was, doing that thing.
And we see a couple of years later, he'd be arrested for heroin possession. This would stop until he was 27, but then would start up again when he was almost 40. He was even arrested a year later before Wade committed his most horrendous crimes. Now, none of these going further would be violent. Pretty much every arrest is done with some kind of theft or burglary, and it floored me a bit with how similar both Wade and his father were as far as criminal history. Even more so when you find out that Wade didn't speak to his father until his 18th birthday. It was after his first arrest. Wade asked to speak to him while in jail, and Steve obliged. If this isn't a hell of a case in the nature versus nurture department, then I don't know. A boy with a criminal father is put into a well-off religious family. The boy then begins displaying the same penchant for drugs and thievery. It's genuinely fascinating. I decided to look up papers to see if there had been any extensive studies on adopted children and their proclivity towards criminal behavior. And I found 3 that assessed the roles of genetics in conjunction with crimes adopted by people. One was from 1997, another in 2007, and the final in 2014. From what I gathered, there's a higher chance that a child with a parent who engages in criminal behavior will also engage in that similar behavior. Almost all the info in the research is usually based on non-violent crimes. If only the adopted parents were criminals, the number dropped. If it was the biological parents, it would be higher. If it was both biological parents, higher still. And if both the biological and adoptive parents are criminals, the child just has an uphill battle. And the worst of it is when drugs and criminal behavior intertwine, and most of these percentages were still fairly low. I think this is why one of the studies gives a disclaimer to most of their info. Just automatically assuming a kid is going to be a criminal is just pretty much setting them up for failure, despite any data support. It's something to be aware of, but not biased towards. You want to actually give the kid a chance without any predisposed prejudice. Don't condemn them for the devil in their bloodstream. There are rumors of Wade's biological mother being in a similar boat, but I couldn't find anything to substantiate it. And as far as we know, he still hasn't had any contact with her. And there really isn't much on the contact between his biological father, Steve, before 2019. And despite being able to share hot wiring and cell decoration tips, it seems Wade only called Steve to ask for money or favors.
You know, I was sending him money, getting him hotel rooms, sending him Ubers, you know, anything he needed.
If his later phone calls are any indicator, this seems to ring true for Wade. Most of them boil down to Wade complaining or engaging in vapid pleasantries until he asked for what he wants. I feel like at some point they had to discuss their shady past.
You know, I told him about my past, and he told me where he was at that time.
The way that Steve interacts with Wade, despite how crazy Wade's being, tells me that it isn't his first rodeo. And I ain't no clown. In one call, Wade tells Steve that he knows the game. And it sounds like there's an understanding there, despite Wade's penchant for storytelling. But I have to give Steve all the kudos for his actions moving forward. He played a pivotal role in the victims receiving justice. Hopefully, it's a wake-up call to change his own behavior. And I'd like to believe it. That's just not another criminal trying to save face or wash over his own history. The reasoning, though, can be a bit of a sticky business, and we'll get into that later.
You made some mistakes along the way, and that put me in a bad situation. Yeah. And put other people in bad situations.
As I get older, I find more and more how similar I am to my parents. And it's interesting to see how these behaviors can replicate regardless of contact. And it's crazy how Wade would specifically engage in grand theft and burglary just like dear old dad. And it's rare for the opportunity to see these kind of parallels. Despite Wade's hankering for wanting to talk to dear old dad, on October 7th, 2019, he will regret all of it. It's October 6, 2019 at the Boot Alive in Fort Myers, a bar and venue that's alive with a buzz of music and chatter. Mila and Wade meet her friend Amy at the bar. They chill and have a few drinks. What Mila says was a Michelob Ultra and 2 Johnny Vegases. While Mila and Amy chill out at the bar, Wade decides to go out and become a social butterfly. I believe that he was trying to pull his gas station trick and score some drugs. Christine Melton is also at the Boot Alive. She's meeting up with her friend, Stephanie Sailors. This is around 10 p.m. Christine and Stephanie have been good friends since high school, even living together in Colorado. Now waitresses at the same restaurant, so just be like old times. But their fun night would be ruined with the black cat about to walk across their path. As they're about to head to the upstairs bar, a man jumps out in front of them and introduces himself. He says his name is JR. He's tall, dark, and handsome. He's charming and whispering sweet nothings. He's the waste of space in this video thumbnail. And as you can tell, Wade has a habit of using pseudonyms. During their conversation, Wade mentions that he has a friend that they need to meet. And that friend being neither Mila nor Amy. It's actually Wade's old cellmate, Jason Shepard. They hang out for a bit before heading off to grab some snow. Wade tells Mila, but she doesn't want to go to some stranger's house, or a drug house as she would call it in the interrogation.
He wanted to go to this house, like a drug house.
Wade gets angry that he's not getting his way and a fight ensues. He walks off during the fight. Since he has the keys on him, he decides to leave with Jason, Christine, and Stephanie. Mila gets left at the bar wondering how she's gonna get home. Luckily, Amy lets her crash at her place for the night. Jason would be driving the Hellcat. Wade can't drive stick. Not the right knob for him. And they grab the coke and head to Jason's mom's house. The party continues and things get taken up a notch as they hit the slopes. Wade and Christine get hot and heavy, eventually heading back to Jason's room. They engage in the horizontal tango while coming out for more drinks, smokes, and snorts. Stephanie and Jason hang out in the backyard, giving the other two their space. And this happens until Jason's mom has had enough and kicks them out. Jason stays home while the other three leave in Mila's Dodge. None of them know how to drive stick, which is why Wade is driving. Obviously, they don't get far. He stalls out the car on the corner of the street. Stephanie calls an Uber and they head over to Christine's duplex. And once there, Stephanie leaves to take her son to school. It's around 6 a.m. by this time. Christine hugs and kisses Stephanie and tells her that she'll see her tomorrow. Unfortunately, Stephanie didn't have an inkling that Christine would never fulfill that promise. And the reason for her absence was with her in that very room. Cause you see, after Wade and Christine finish some coital camaraderie, Christine falls asleep. And it is here, in this innocent state, when Wade attacks her. When Christine is lying vulnerable and completely defenseless, he beats her, causing severe injuries. He then wraps her hands around her throat and strangles her to death. Christine gasps and fights while this 6'6", over 200-pound man rains down on her, and Wade continues to strangle Christine until the beautiful lights that were once in her eyes have faded. It is unthinkable to me that he could see someone sleeping and his first impulse is to beat and strangle them. This is cold and predatory to an understated level. And suddenly, what Wade did begins to set in and he flips out. He gathers the sheet around Christine to move her body. He can't do it. He wants to stuff Christine in the trunk of her car, but the rigor mortis has set in. He searches for his phone and soon realizes it's still a Jason's. Uh-oh. So he steals the keys to Christine's Versa and takes off. Security footage catches him leaving around 7:10 a.m. He also takes Christine's phone to call Mila. Mila doesn't pick up. Wade blocked his ID after he started getting violent with Mila. Seeing an unknown name and number, she just let it ring. Unfortunately, Wade wasn't done with his violent tirade. He would commit yet another act even more vile. Diane Ruiz is on a lonely stretch of road to her job as a bartender at the Moose Lodge. She'd never miss a day, always showing up to her 10 a.m. shift, even if someone wasn't around to take her. So she grabs her things and hoofs it herself. Unfortunately, she isn't the only one. Wade is driving alongside, trying to get Diane's attention. He yells for directions. Diane stops to help out the wayward stranger. Wade continues his manipulation. He convinces Diane to get into the car, whether willing or by force is unknown. During the car ride, Diane catches wind of something being up and tries to escape, Wade becoming even more berserk. He starts beating and choking her while he's driving, maintaining pressure on Diane's throat until she loses consciousness. Wade then gets scared and tries to find a place to dump her body. It was during this time that he noticed that she wasn't actually dead but still faintly breathing. The medical examiner mentioned that it only takes 10 to 15 seconds of pressure for a person to pass out. After 30, a person may never return from consciousness, and Diane wasn't conscious, but she was still alive. Wade can't have that. He drives to a spot near the Sam's Club. He rolls Diane's body out of the car and then proceeds to run her over between 10 to 20 times. After he is done, Diane is barely recognizable. This monster then takes her body and unceremoniously throws it into a field behind the Sam's Club. He also takes the belongings in her purse before throwing it out the window. Never able to lose those sticky fingers, Wade tries calling Mila again. Mila picks up this time. She then agrees to meet up with Wade at her spa. He shows up in Christine's Versa, which Mila doesn't recognize. Wade then turns on the charm and starts sweet-talking Mila. He tries to talk Mila into getting a bus or plane ticket out of there. She doesn't seem so sure. So then he talks her into getting into the car. Her friend Amy is still there as backup. Amy gets into the back seat. Wade continues to argue with Mila, who's beginning to resist. Wade punches, chokes, and slaps her, trying to get Mila under his control, all while threatening to kill Amy if she gets out of the car. Wade tackles Mila to the ground, ripping her clothes off in the process. The vehicle is not in park and is still careening towards them when they barely roll out of the way, and she tries to escape as he drags her upstairs towards her business. Wade holds Mila to a wall by her throat while continuing to strike her. Eventually, the blood erupting from her face startles him. Mila uses this moment to dash off to one of the neighboring businesses. Seeing this mostly naked and bloody woman now before them, they instantly offer her sanctuary. Mila, Amy, and witnesses outside flood 911 with their calls. Wade runs back to his vehicle and takes off. He parks nearby at a Joe's Crab Shack. It's basically across the street. So it wouldn't be much of a surprise when a few hours later, Wade had an officer approaching the vehicle. And it's around 3 p.m. when Officer Timothy McCormick finds Christine's vehicle parked at that Joe's Crab Shack. Wade's still inside. You can see the officer trying to detain Wade. Jesus Christ, he is so polite.
What's going on, man? You're waiting on your girlfriend? Oh, okay. That's no problem.
And you can see Wade being an uncooperative He is either sidestepping the officer's question or asking his own stupid questions.
Let me see the keys to the car. Let me see the keys to the car. Keys. Keys. Wait, we're not gonna have any problems. Just give me the keys to the car. Wade.
Sir, I didn't do anything. Look at me.
Joe. All right. Just wait till my partner gets here.
Before long, Wade could tell that this isn't ending well for him. He rolls up his window and takes off. At this time, Wade was only wanted for a misdemeanor battery charge, and so the officer didn't give chase. It's also crazy how you can leave with no consequence after potentially beating the out of someone.
The cops have been telling me to bait him. We even baited him one time at Joe's Crab Shack, and they knocked on the window, and he said, "Let me get my girlfriend," or talk to my girlfriend. He was like drug sweating, even the cop said, and they let him go. They didn't chase him. I don't know why they didn't block him in or anything.
It's policy. So.
Why wouldn't they just block him in or something?
So after that, have you talked to him?
And when Police Chief Dave Newland was asked why Wade was not immediately charged with their deaths, he would say, "Let me be clear. Securing a successful prosecution and ultimately a conviction in this case is paramount. A hastily conducted investigation simply for the sake of speed, where stops could be missed, benefit no one." You're right. Why would we take the guy off the street that's openly beating people in public? Wouldn't want to be unfair to old Choky Charlie over there. Wade then gets desperate. He tries calling Mila again. Of course, no answer. He then tries to get help from whoever he can. He drives to a friend of a friend's business, Mateo Graphics and Towing. This friend is Joshua Lukish. Wade mentions him being a former business partner, but it can't be that great when he straight up calls him fat in the interrogation.
He's slamming.
So, but you showed up in that.
He's fat.
He approaches Josh, wide-eyed, with no shirt and bloody hands. Josh thinks it's a joke. Even more so when Wade tells him that he has murdered people and needs a plane or bus ticket out of there. One thing that keeps coming up is that Wade is a bit of a storyteller. It seems everyone knows his turbulent past with his girlfriends and thought he was just letting off steam or speaking in hyperbole. Wade continues to reiterate the murders. This makes Josh pause and reassess the half-naked bloody man now in front of him. Josh doesn't want any part of this.
When he was speaking to you and asking you for your assistance, did that give you any cause for concern?
Not right away. And once I took a look at him again, I started to believe what he was saying.
He tells Wade that he has to go pick up an employee and that he'll be back. During this time, Luke calls 911 and reports what Wade has told him. But when Luke gets back, Wade is long gone. He had left the Hellcat and escaped on foot, the paranoia getting to him. Seems he was looking for a place to hide. Wade eventually finds refuge. He chooses the home of Fanny and Kent Amlin, and luckily the couple had just left for Ohio when Wade broke in. Being an 80-year-old couple, I don't think they'd be in any shape to fight off this rampaging monster. Wade smashes a window and climbs through. He rifles through the Kent's clothes looking for replacements, and somehow he actually finds some in his size. He also goes to the couple's fridge, downing some White Claws, probably looking to lose any lucid thought while the weight of his actions were fully barreling down on him. And it's here where Wade calls his biological father, Steve. Steve didn't answer any of his earlier calls, not knowing the number that Wade had been calling from. He didn't know the Amlin's home phone number, but he picked up this time. Wade confesses to what he has done. With his past of being a storyteller, Steve thought he was making it up.
He said he needed help. He had done something that he couldn't take back.
When he says that there were two people that wouldn't be with us and that he was a killer, did you put a lot of weight into that?
No, ma'am.
Did you think he was just telling you a story?
He's a good storyteller.
Steve was also at work and didn't have time for this nonsense. He told Wade that he'd call him back later in the evening when he got off. In the meantime, a detective contacts Steve. It was in regards to Christine's death. This suddenly puts things more in perspective for Steve, so he decides to start working with the police. Maybe seeing his son now going down a path that he could have walked, one with no escape and possibly leading to his death. And I'd like to think it's for completely altruistic reasons, but with Steve's past, I feel like the cops could lean on him a little bit more. Really, grease those wheels. And it's honestly probably somewhere in between. But either way, he makes the right choice and is pivotal in getting Wade. And Steve calls back later that evening. During this time, Steve's wife is next to him on speaker, texting information to the police. Steve says that Wade seemed excited to tell him about the murders. Wade wanted him to feel the same exhilaration that he was feeling.
As he's telling you all these things, what's his demeanor as he's telling you?
He was excited.
You say excited, what do you mean by that?
I felt like he was wanting me to feel the way he felt about it.
Did he seem proud of it?
Yes.
Did he seem to show any kind of remorse?
Oh, ma'am.
And was he able to go into great detail about both of these ladies' deaths?
Yes, ma'am.
All his father could feel was just sadness and disappointment. Steve tells Wade that he'll call an Uber for him, and that Uber ends up having flashing blue and red lights. Soon after that, Diane's body is found 3 days later in an open field behind the Sam's Club. Scavengers were already picking at the body, another indignity given to her by Wade. No one deserves the treatment or the ends that she received. Christine Melton was a rock for those in her life and precious to everyone who knew her. She would constantly make them feel safe and cared for. She would be the godmother to her cousin's child, helping them raise them as her own. She'd also be a cat mom, dressing herself and them up for Halloween. Her favorite time of year. Mine too, my girl. This was all while she was caring for her mother who was suffering from Alzheimer's. Christine and she would have coffee every morning chatting about their days. She would be her mother's best friend. And in one of the saddest things I've genuinely heard, her mother hasn't been able to process her death. Christine's mother still believes that she's out there, alive, happy, and married. There are no words for how tragic that is. The other vibrant life that Wade would snuff out was Diane Ruiz. She was a hardworking mother engaged to be married, and her peers said she never missed one of her shifts in over 5 years. She was a pillar. They'd also say that she was the heartbeat of the bar, with a laugh that would light up your face as much as hers. You could hear it a block away. A mother doing her best for her family to be callously run over 10 times with a car. Wade killed those that only seemed to give while he only wanted to take. 2 sons giving warmth to their universes blotted out by a walking void. Wade seemed to have a knack to take advantage of those with a will to help. And then he'd use that goodwill to hang them with every inch of rope. There is no other word for this besides senseless. And at least for now, Wade is locked up so he can't hurt anyone else. Or so we thought. Wade is brought in for interrogation on October 8th. He is infuriating.
How is it that you came to be in that home tonight?
I don't know. What am I here for? How about you give me something, then I'll give you something. Tell me what I'm here for. Tell me what you're thinking. Am I charged for something? Are you questioning me for something?
Well, there was a disturbance between...
This would be a good start. Yeah.
Knowing that he's being that condescending and annoying on purpose.
Right, there's a disturbance between you and your girlfriend today, right? This morning.
Are you saying right, or are you telling me?
I'm asking you.
You gotta phrase this in the right way.
Well...
And you can tell that this isn't his first rodeo, but he definitely is a clown. Trying to act like he's in control the whole time.
Keep going first. There's more, I feel, and then we can talk. You're doing all right, but I feel like you should just tell me, I'm listening.
It also establishes his veracity of truth, or lack thereof. And I absolutely love the way that he says that the cop who stopped him earlier at the Joe's Crab Shack was a jerk.
An officer made contact with you outside of Joe's Crab Shack, and that encounter didn't go very well and you left.
He's a jerk.
Okay.
He wasn't very nice. He need to train better.
That man.
That's no problem.
The nicest guy in the world, that guy. He says the officer made him leave, threatening to tase him.
He made you leave? He told you to leave? Or?
He was gonna tase me.
Oh, well, that's making me leave.
He was just being real trigger.
This never happened on the body cam, and you can tell that he's trying to get as much info out of the officers to construct his own story around it.
You're telling me. I'm not saying accurate. I don't know why I'm here. Please tell me, and then let's talk.
So
tell me everything.
I'm trying to have a conversation with you.
We're doing good. You're doing good.
He'll keep denying it happened while claiming he can't remember or directly obfuscating information.
So you met this female, do you remember her name?
Not at all.
No.
No, I don't. Vaguely knew her, vaguely spent time with her. Don't know her. Don't know where she's at. Don't know where she's going.
I also noticed he has a penchant for just shit-talking things whenever he's getting nervous or can't think of anything to say, which wonderful trait.
She was my fiance, but she's whatever. No. I mean, it's like, it's Buddha sucks. It's like, it's cool. My dad's a dick anyways. He's alright though.
He says the car ran out of gas, but we all know his dumbass hubris got the best of him.
We Ubered.
He Ubered back to her house. Okay.
My car was out of gas.
You can also see the way he stares off to the side and elongates his words when he's trying to think of something to say.
And don't really care. Not my friend, not an acquaintance. Don't even know her name.
Okay. So you didn't even get her first name?
No.
And I also love how the officer brings up how crazy nice it was that Christine would just let Wade use her phone and car even though it was the first time they had ever met. He just sheepishly goes,
Oh, I mean, it's just a phone. No big deal.
Even though he also knows it would be absolutely insane for somebody to do. No kielbasa is that good. Wade expands on that in the story later. He says the reason that Christine let him borrow her car was that she understood how pissed off Mila would be if she found out. But before this, he said he was taking Christine's car to see Mila.
And I was going to meet my girl.
Wouldn't that be worse? Showing up in a stranger's car. Tell me how that isn't worse. I know everyone reacts differently, but holy crap, when the officer tells Wade they found Christine dead in her house, his first reaction is to ask again if it was her house.
Okay, do you think know what we found when we got to her house? She's dead.
What do you mean she's dead? At her house?
At her house.
Okay.
Wade also finds it unreasonable that he's being asked about her death, still playing the victim.
That's what I would like to talk about. Is that fair? For me to say?
It's not fair. Because now you're being unreasonable to me.
No, I'm not trying to be unreasonable. What I'm saying is...
In a way, in fashion.
And I guarantee you that Christine found it unreasonable when you were choking her to death while she was just trying to sleep. And Wade conveniently forgets his former cellmate's name, the one he was with at the night of the murder.
Maybe the guy we hung out last with?
You don't know his name?
I don't.
He also calls him a real weirdo.
He was a creeper, to be honest with you. And we all left his house. None of us liked him. He even creeped me the fuck out. Very weird, very strange. I didn't like him at all.
A real weirdo that he has no problem just chilling inside his home, with no car or gas apparently. Guess he just couldn't have been that weird. And he tries to say that doing push-ups on the concrete is what caused the wounds on his hands, and he offered this up without the officer asking.
I don't know how much time you got. Look, I did push-ups on the concrete and killed my hands.
And my guy, I know you know how to do push-ups. You're a personal trainer, most likely receiving those in Mila's tussle when they hit the concrete. And then the point where he climbed over the barbed wire fence at Mateo's. He mentions not knowing where Jason's house is earlier in the interrogation.
His house, do you remember where he lived?
No.
Okay. Was it in Fort Myers, Cape Coral?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Honestly.
But then suddenly he can lead the police there exactly.
I'll take you to his house. Wanna go?
So you think...
You wanna take a ride? I'm not gonna tell you where it's at because I don't know. But I promise you, I can find it.
You can find it? Okay.
For sure.
That's real convenient. And you can tell that he takes some psychic damage when the officer mentions to him that his dad was the one who called the cops, trying to act nonchalant with an...
Interesting. Yeah.
And he talks about never needing to run from anything, yet mentioned earlier that he ditched the car at Mateo's because he doesn't want the heat. Well, which is it?
You know, I don't really want to run. I'm too tired, man. Getting old, you know, there's nothing to really run from. It's not a big thing. I'm cool, you know. So, it wasn't a big deal. I knew he'd call.
Things only continue to fall apart when the officer confronts him with the fact that she has statements from 4 different people and all this evidence.
Mila. I got Josh.
Yeah.
And I got your father saying that you told all 3 of them that you killed somebody.
Wade says that they're all out to get him.
They all just do this to me, honestly. It's nothing new. It's really not. They've done this to me before.
Why? Cause screw him, that's why. Let's create a whole murder. Oh, goddamn. Let's create a whole murder conspiracy for this walking skid mark. There's an interesting point where Wade mentions that his dad is trying to falsely help him. He says Steve agreed to something and then backed out and screwed him over.
Let me tell you something with my dad.
Sure.
He's like tried to falsely help me before, and then like backed out and me.
He wouldn't elaborate when asked.
What's that mean? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know either. He's not a good guy.
I'm beginning to think that this either has to do with a phone call earlier or maybe some criminal stuff from before, and Wade just eventually thought better of it. The officer asks if anything freaky between Wade and Christine happens.
Any freaky shit?
I could tell that this was to establish that the bruising on her happened after they had slept together. Wade, of course, denies anything too crazy going on.
Not really. No.
No, just regular sex. She didn't want you to like.
I mean, freaky enough.
Walked right into it. The best is when he flat out says,
I don't do drugs.
He also mentions working with someone from The Deadliest Catch, which is not a cameo I expected.
You ever seen the show The Deadliest Catch?
Yeah.
I work with a guy on that show currently, in the season right now, down at the Florida Keys. He owns a resort down there, and I used to work with guys down there. And she used to date one of the guys I used to work with.
I gotta say, the officer did really well on building rapport with him while also pushing back when she needed to. Once she's finished, she leaves, and it seems like he actually starts crying from the realization that he's cooked.
Yes, sir. It's freezing. Detective Bell's just taking care of something, so.
Terrific. That's great.
I'm sorry?
That's great.
Oh, I was talking to them. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to wake you up.
No problem.
Another detective comes in and he starts playing much more demure.
Barbed wire?
Not barbed wire, but the ones that have like the little post.
Yeah, the little thing that has the bar going across the top. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's in your head.
That is, until the officer confronts him about his history of beating women.
Looks like you have a history of beating women.
Yeah. Yes, so, if you say so.
After that, he gets very confrontational.
No, I can read it to you if you want.
I'm good, asshole. Huh?
Sorry?
How'd she die, little man? How'd she die?
Slowly devolving into a child.
Be a man, don't act like a child. Just do
Well,
that.
I mean, being a man is not beating women.
Just be a man. Just be a man. Don't act like a child.
I'm not sure what that means.
I know, so just read it to yourself then.
He eventually just stops responding altogether.
Oh, her phone. Do you know where it is by any chance?
One of the most damning points coming at the end. Christine's door was locked, and there was no forced entry, which means only someone with a key could get in. The person with that key, Wade Wilson. And the cherry on top is when he's confronted about these lies.
I'm gonna tell you like this. Suck my dick, Cracker. How about that? I'll see you in trial. Suck my dick, bitch.
The items you wear, they belong to you or they don't?
They do. That's saying more common because you are a little bitch.
So,
you should.
Are you angry enough to... You're saying you're angry enough to do something if they weren't here? You get angry that easily?
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I do.
So you do have a temper. Thank you. You've been very
Suck
helpful.
my dick, bitch.
And after that, Wade is booked and the trial begins. And there's a lot of evidence against Wade. The defense seem to be pooping themselves. Even more so when he shows up with a face full of tattoos, including some of those with these hate-filled gems. The defense asks if the tattoos can be stricken from the record, afraid it would influence the jury. The judge wasn't having it. It would be pretty obvious when someone gets fresh ink and decides to throw some of these things in there, their character isn't going to come into question. It's non-existent. It isn't the only thing that he and his lawyer, Lee Hollander, couldn't agree on. Wade wants to plead not guilty. His lawyer thinks it's best to argue this is a temporary drug-induced psychosis. He puts it so eloquently here.
In his statement, it must have been like bath salts or flakka. It just made me lose my effing mind, and it made me effing get crazy. When I'm sober, I'm actually a decent guy, which is what everybody else said.
And if this guy can see that you're already cooked, then oh buddy.
Whatever that dude had me on, like fentanyl, flakka, whatever the F it was, dude, it was not cocaine. I thought it was different, and he gave me a lot of it. That had me up for 2.5 days.
Lee says that Wade has a diseased mind, and so there's a lot of mitigating factors at play. The defense also argues that Christine wasn't awake at the time of the killing, trying to make the murders seem less premeditated, but DNA evidence linking Christine and Wade had been sent away. It came back with a 1 in 700 billion chance that it could be someone else's, solidifying that there are no other parties involved. Dr. Noelia Hernandez, the associate medical examiner, testified that Christine's death was a result of asphyxiation caused by sustained pressure on the neck. She says that this method of strangulation suggests a level of premeditation and aggression.
All of her autopsy findings taken together are consistent with death by asphyxia due to compression of the neck.
The facts of the case throw out any argument for the defense.
Say, you cut off oxygen or blood flow to a person's brain, and then you let them recover, that brain will swell. But if a person dies from injuries, and in this case, more than likely, she was asphyxiated from strangulation, she would have died, not allowing the brain to swell because of that process. And so it suggests to me that that swelling occurred prior to that, probably from concussive trauma to her head.
They say that Wade embellished the extreme factors to Diane's killing because he's sick. In addition, they also say that if she wasn't conscious, then she wasn't experiencing the pain and fear the state wants you to believe. You gotta be hard-pressed to vote for death and you don't even know what the truth is. Which I think we can all agree on Wade being sick. The coroners have some qualms with this embellishment. The medical examiner gives the horrifying truth that Diane would have never survived the neck injuries that she received from Wade. She never had a chance. But she was still alive when Wade decided to run her over 10 times with the car.
Would you say that, I don't know, an automobile driving over a body could cause that kind of...
That would certainly cause that, yeah.
And regardless of whether she was conscious or not, it is horrible to drag a body under a vehicle and then run it over that many times. It's sickening. During this time, many witnesses take the stand to tell their stories and testify.
What did he say happened after she fell asleep?
He said he got on top of her and choked her.
What name did he call her? Did he refer to her in a derogatory term?
He said, I choked that bitch.
Steve, Luke, Mila, Jason, and Stephanie all give witness statements damning Wade.
And he talked about these two people who are no longer with us and that he was a killer. Did he show any type of remorse?
No, ma'am.
The most potent of these are the family members of those taken. Christine's cousin talks about how amazing she was to everyone around her.
Every relationship or friendship she had was special because she was part of it. She was a cheerleader to us all. She loved us unconditionally, completely, and with her entire being until October 7th, 2019.
Helping out whenever she could.
Christine was strong, brave, independent, and loyal. She was the friend you wished you had. She was the friend who got more fired up about your problems than you did. She was fiercely protective and always on your side, even if you were wrong. She was precious, not just to me, to everyone who knew her. She was a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a niece, and a cousin. She was loved, and her life had value.
Similar sentiments come from Diane's son and fiancé.
My mother supported my dreams and only ever wanted me to succeed in life. She always reassured me that my life wasn't going to end if I got a C in math. She always made sure that all the hard work I was putting into my education wasn't going unnoticed. She would always show up with random gifts that helped me and succeeded in my life for what I needed. When I was younger, I originally wanted to be a photographer. My mother went out of her way to find me a professional beginner photographer. She knew I wanted to print my photos, and she bought me a printer with photo paper. I no longer have those dreams, but I still constantly use those items. She was raised in a tough home environment and only ever wanted to give me and my brother nothing like that. She wanted us to grow up in a loving home and for us to be happy. My mother was a single mother who only ever wanted not only for her family but everybody around her to be happy.
And it rends my goddamn soul to see this kid talk about how supportive his mother was and how she will never see the rewards of her labor and love, to never see the person that she worked so hard for, to never know that satisfying feeling when you get to watch your own carve a path in the world with the tools that you gave them.
My mom didn't get the chance to see me accomplish. My mother will never get the chance to see me get married, get to see me graduate college as a first generation graduate, get to see me get my first real job.
The last interaction with Diane's fiancé only makes it that much more tragic.
You left for work around 6:30 in the morning, you said?
Yes.
So you didn't see her after you'd left, is that correct?
Nope.
Did you have any contact with her after you left for work that day?
A brief text message. She didn't think I gave her a kiss goodbye.
Had you?
Of course.
Something he is now going to have to wrestle with until the end of his days. Both were loving, supporting people who were doing their best for their loved ones, only to have it violently ripped asunder, showing that there are far more victims than just the ones murdered. Neurologist Dr. Mark Rubino testifies during a Spencer hearing. It's when a defendant is facing death and has the right to appeal directly to a judge.
Based on a report by Dr. Rubino, he recommended, well, first off, he found evidence indicating, possibly indicating traumatic brain injury.
He says that the images of Wade's brain, as well as his performance on various cognitive tests, indicate that he may have brain damage, and that can make him prone to impulsive behavior without regard for consequences. Which there have been CTE studies linking brain damage to impulsive behavior. As the brain takes damage, more permanent abnormalities can occur, and most of these involve the regulation of impulse and emotion. Wade says he received those earlier in a car crash in his life. Medical examiner Dr. Thomas Coyne was also called to the stand. He rebuts Rubino, saying that the scans show no signs of structural defects.
I'll tell you further why, right? So if you had asymmetry in the ventricles, or let's say, for instance, he also described that there was an abnormality in the size of the ventricles, that they were actually more narrow or smaller. They're not. This is actually appropriate in size. And he suggested that because of that, there's probably due to increased intracranial pressure. But that doesn't happen in isolation. Increased intracranial pressure is going to cause fluid from the ventricles as well as fluid from the vascular space to spill out into the actual brain tissue, and that's going to cause abnormalities in the CSF pattern, as well as it's going to cause hyperintensities around vessels. You see none of that here in this actual scan whatsoever. You see the normal sulsation right here, or the normal folds of the brain. You have no evidence of that increased intracranial pressure. More importantly, like I said, there's no overt evidence of abnormality in ventricle size, and that matches what the radiologist saw on both the CAT scan and the MRI.
His scores indicated that he was non-compliant, that he answered the questions, that's kind of partial compliance, but that he invalidated each test by exaggerating symptoms that most people do not have, or most people do not have to that same degree. So, in effect, he said, wow, I've got every symptom in the book. And of course, every symptom in the book is many too many symptoms. Even people who are seriously ill only have some symptoms.
He also adds that people don't need to have brain damage to do evil things, which is fair. Thanks to Wade's mom letting us know about his bipolar disorder, which includes symptoms of impulsive behavior, it lets us know he already has a predisposition. But the thing is, other people suffer from similar symptoms and go their entire lives without choking someone to death while they're sleeping. Certainly not running someone over 10 times. I mean, Wade is but in ways that science is still trying to figure out. This is a monster more in control than he lets on, and the jury seems to feel the same way. In his closing argument, even Lee states that he's not there to say that Wade didn't do it.
Again, running over the body 10 to 20 times, nobody's saying that's not depraved. We're not arguing he didn't do it. There's solid evidence that he is responsible for those 2 deaths and the battery of Miss Montanez. Miss Montanez's testimony, you need to think about that, whether this was premeditated in terms, I mean, Miss Melton had sex with him. He could have just gotten up and left or stayed with her. Instead, he murders her? That's not clear thinking, shall we say. I'm not arguing insanity. I'm just arguing that the state's claiming premeditation, and I'm saying He's whacked out. He's just out of his mind for any of this.
He asked the jury for a finding of second-degree murder rather than first-degree, and the jury votes on June 25th, 2024. They vote 9-3 in Christine's case and 10-2 in Diane's case in favor of the death penalty. It took about 90 minutes. Florida's death penalty only requires 8 out of the 12 jurors to vote on it. Wade tries to appeal, but the judge denies it, and on August 27th, those death sentences are imposed by the judge. He gave Wade 2. Judge Thompson said during the sentencing, the evidence showed both murders were heinous, atrocious, and cruel, and that the second murder was cold, calculated, and premeditated. Couldn't agree more. Wade has a smug look throughout all of it. He also throws up this strange hand sign afterward.
Thank you, then we'll be adjourned.
I'm guessing it's for someone he expects to be watching. No clue on what it could possibly mean. And some of the family members are pretty ecstatic about the death penalty.
This will not be the last that Wade Wilson sees of us in a courtroom.
And I will be there at the execution. That's a promise.
And I honestly can't blame them. I think they deserve their schadenfreude. But for now, they have to enjoy watching Wade rotting in prison until the day of his execution. But of course, it hasn't been a peaceful stay. As we've established, Wade can't help getting himself into trouble. Wade is taken to Lee County Jail. A tip is received about a possible escape attempt involving Wade and his cellmate Joseph Katz. This is on September 30th, 2020. Joseph Katz is in the slammer for domestic violence. Bosom buddies. Wade is accused of tampering with a window and being the brains behind the operation, even setting up a getaway car. Deputies search the 10x10 cell and find the window frame holding the glass has been removed, and there are several cracks in the thick security glass. Wade is charged with attempted escape and criminal mischief. A note on yellow legal paper was also found that was passed along to his cellmate. It notes the escape and connects him to the Unforgiven, which it is unsure if he is actually a part of this group, but it honestly wouldn't be a surprise. They are believed to be the second largest prison gang in Florida, and of course, one all about a single shade of skin. Can you guess what color? This may also be the same group that kicked out Wade's teeth. They usually aren't too discerning besides being white. They'd easily take someone like Wade in, and Wade could benefit from many connections, including an alleged one with the Florida government, and their easy access to drugs. And speaking of drugs, Wade just couldn't say no. On April 20th, 2023, a K-9 identified narcotics at the Lee County Jail where landscaping rocks are laid. A gray grocery bag with 2 Ziploc bags were inside. Each bag has loose cigarettes, narcotics, lighters, and pills. Both test positive for methamphetamine. Authorities figure out that Wade is working with other inmates to plant the drugs. Looks like they also had some questionable outside help. Bonnie Wiggins calls Wade often. There's someone else on the line though. Authorities are listening in. Bonnie talks to Wade about the narcotics, so the police put her under investigation. Bonnie and 3 other suspects show up outside the jail. They show up with drugs. The police see all of it, and so Wade gets another 12 years for his trouble. They drop the escape charges, and he's now pinned with drug smuggling, something far more serious. Wade is taken to Florida's Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, where he sits in solitary. And in 2020, the national average from sentencing to execution was 227 months. So he may be in for a long wait before we get to say goodbye to this old lady killer. And despite the solitary, he does not want for attention. Many women and some men have sent him letters, messages, and phone calls. And the worst of it? They're raising money to get this monster out of jail. As Wade's case blew up, so did his presence on social media. A flood of women and some men fell nose over tail for Jared Leto's dime store body double. A report from NBC shows that Wade has received over 4,000 messages while locked up, and they don't seem to be stopping. There are even 24 letters sent to the judge before the trial verdict. All of them asked for leniency in his sentencing. Only one was from Florida. All the others were out of state or even out of country. And there are some choice examples. And let's go ahead and nip these in the bud while we're here.
Mr. Wilson's acts were influenced by drug use and brain damage, distinguishing him from mass murderers.
We don't know that. Brain scans aren't always done. We also have conflicting statements as far as the irregularity in his brain, and evidence is still being collected on the link between brain injury and lessened inhibition. We're also still collecting data on the connection between drugs and mental disorder. Hell, we're still trying to figure out just mental disorders. Just recently has weed been pretty much confirmed to exacerbate pre-existing conditions, and there just isn't enough evidence to really support any of that. Regardless, there are many suffering the same way who haven't taken multiple lives. Remember, this was premeditated. Christine was sleeping. He also locked the door behind him when he left. He lured Diane into the vehicle and then ran her over when he saw that she wasn't dead. This takes thought. This takes problem solving.
Multiple people have done much worse than Wilson. They only got life.
Just because someone has something doesn't mean someone else should automatically get it. Those people should probably get elongated sentences, not Wade getting a shorter sentence. That is so much worse. This is literally two wrongs don't make a right. Don't let the grifters and bad faith actors ruin it for the good people. Also, he ran someone over more than 10 times. This man is a predator and walking fecal matter.
Please allow him the opportunity for atonement through proper mental health facilities.
He could have done that at any point before his rampage. He chose not to. That is the consequence of that choice.
So they tried to get mental health treatment. They sought out psychologists. Mr. Wilson was not cooperative and very difficult in terms of trying to get him the help that they sought. And unfortunately, it was only through the police, when his behavior became destructive, that intervention finally occurred.
He is the kindest, most caring and loving person.
This may have been true at one point in his life, but not anymore. I noticed that he seems to go after women who are highly attracted to him, are willing to please him, and let him engage in bad behavior with little repercussion.
You know, he's a coward when it comes to men.
Yeah.
That's the truth. His anger's always been towards women. He doesn't try men like that.
And I think I've done nothing but establish that as long as Wade is speaking, he's lying. He understands his prey perfectly and changes himself to get what he wants. When he doesn't, he lashes out. Just another insecure little man. You can see all of this in his phone calls, and he really talks up his sugar daddy Joey.
Hey Joey.
Hey, good. How you doing, baby? Hey, how's your day?
I'm doing good. It's been okay. Sometimes I go in and out. You know, like when I think about you, though, it makes everything a lot better. But
Get married, James.
we're getting married, baby.
Yeah, that's what it's
Oh, listen, babe. I turned in my my form for my pizza, baby.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I gotta put money in, right? In the books.
Yeah, whenever you
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
To be honest with you, they don't. I don't think they take it out today, but it's better to do it so that they, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I already
Sorry,
turned in the form. I just wanted to let you know.
But he'll sit and pick apart some of the women that he's dating now.
So, like, I will totally video chat you. I want to come see you in person, face to face.
Nah, I want the video chat today. I'll be waiting on it.
I could come Tuesday.
Nah, I'm not cool with waiting at all. I'll see you tomorrow.
I can't come tomorrow, babe. I'm sorry, I can't. I have to go to church tomorrow.
Yeah, you can bring your Bible with you on the plane. I'll see you tomorrow.
Let me ask you, are you a religious person?
I'm a religious person, yeah. Yeah, I'm a religious person, yes.
What,
So
are
I'll see
you
you.
Catholic? Are you
I'll see you.
Baptist? Like, what are you?
I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay,
Right.
babe. Well, obviously, if you're not going to... sorry, I didn't mean to call you babe. Why did you do that?
Because Mila, you know what, Mila? I'm gonna be honest with you. All because of you. All because you caused the scene, and I couldn't tell you what I had done, and you were outside with your.
You know, whatever gets him what he wants. A spineless snake shifting in the grass. Finally, we have what I think is the most honest of these messages.
As someone who cares unconditionally for Wade, I have deeply reflected on the gravity of the situation and the impact of your decision. A life sentence would allow his family, along with myself, the chance to maintain a relationship with Wade.
And I believe that's where all of this lies, in the fantasy. I found some interviews from people far more credible than I, explaining why women are indulging in this fantasy. Julie Weiss, a professor of sociology at Westchester University of Pennsylvania, puts it perfectly. She said,
"This is sort of the ultimate bad boy, but also, it's kind of being able to be with the ultimate bad boy, but in a safe way, right? They're never getting out, so there's some safety to that, right? So it's like you're with the good top, bad boy, but there's no chance that you're going to get, physically hurt by them.
I can understand the need for safety in a world sown with fear, where you feel more like an object than a person. Professor Amanda Vicari, who teaches psychology at Illinois Wesleyan University, helps explain it further. She says,
that everything that seems to be related to preventing it from happening to us seems to really draw people to true crime, especially women. According to evolutionary psychology, we today are still attracted to the things that would have helped us survive back in our ancestral past. Think hunter-gatherer environment. Who is more dominant than a killer? And so while consciously it makes no sense for a woman to be attracted to a killer, especially who has killed other women, our subconscious mind doesn't always make that distinction. It's this combination of this sort of bad boy dominant male image and this level of fame, this celebrity, and the idea that if I attach myself to that, I too could become a celebrity and famous.
Julie Weiss expounds on the celebrity aspect more.
People want their monsters to look like monsters. It's both more fascinating and terrifying when they don't. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing. I also would say that there are elements of spectacle here that are very reminiscent of some other notorious cases.
While Annalise Lucero, a marriage and family therapist, tells us why this feeling may come about.
A lot of them have that empathy and relate to, my mother abandoned me, my family was messed up. So it could be this need to believe that if he is redeemable, so am I.
Basically, fix yourself before you try to fix someone else. No one can make you whole but you. That's really the lesson. So many are willing to risk their lives in the happily ever after with this cold-blooded killer.
In situations like this, where the crimes are so random and graphic, and I don't really feel like he's expressing remorse, I probably wouldn't recommend reaching out to him.
There are even those working to get him out. Wade has his share of supporters who have started online petitions and fundraisers. A Fundly set up on September 6th for him reads, "Our donation campaign aims to raise funds to help Wade Steven Wilson form a reputable, specialized, and competent legal defense team." It has raised more than $86,000. Luckily, many of these donations are being taken down when the organizations realize it's for a killer. But it hasn't stopped more and more from being set up, while others are looking to use more of a direct pipeline. This older man that Wade has been sweet-talking apparently has sent him a few packages. Wade even tells him on the phone that the package didn't get there and he should send another one. You know, a little wink wink, nudge nudge. This obviously being more of a kink for the man since the prison pen pals page is liked on his Facebook.
I wanted to call and ask why you deleted me off the kiosk.
Hey. Dude, I apologize, Billy.
I wanted to tell you, this is Wade, right?
Oh, no, I didn't know. Sorry.
Yes, this is Wade. This is
Oh,
Wade.
shit,
I've been waiting
sorry.
forever. Who did you think I was?
My friend Billy that's locked up right now.
And normally, I really don't care what you're into, but it really gets me heated thinking about people raising money for this low life, and how there are other people that I genuinely feel were unfairly sent to their deaths, and how no one could raise money for them. But this psycho can have the floodgates open for him because he happened to win the genetic lottery. Even his attorney doesn't understand it. Kevin Shirley told Newsweek, "There's donations that are set up for him. I think it's ridiculous. There's a lot of people that think otherwise." I don't know if it's because Mr. Wilson was an extremely attractive young man, before he disfigured his face. Now, maybe because he's disfigured his face. Maybe that's a turn on for some people. I don't know. It's the Joker fantasy, Who knows? They've been contributing to a fund. They're sending emails. They're sending pictures. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. I love how utterly baffled he is by the hybristophiliacs. His brain just refuses to believe it's possible. You're a defense attorney. You don't need me to tell you that the world is In the end, I feel empathy for these women. As someone who has been taken advantage of through other people's lies, I know that hopeful haze of ignorance well. That stubborn need to not let go because it's your whole world at that moment and you're not able to see anything past it. The blockers are just too strong. But that is all part of Wade's plan. A master manipulator changing to suit the situation. Finding anyone willing to listen. As long as there's someone out there to believe his lies, Wade is going to talk. And talk. And talk. Not afraid to show us how much worse he actually is. And somehow, throughout all of this, Wade continues to push his innocence.
Did you kill Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz?
No, absolutely not.
He denied having anything to do with killing Christine and Diane in a phone interview with NBC2. When the interviewer asked if he meant to say Christine was alive and well when he left her house in her car, Wilson said yes. He further said that Diane asked him for a ride and he dropped her off at the bus stop. Speaking to the station again in 2023, Wilson said,
I'm not a monster. Yeah, I'm not a saint either by any means. I've made bad decisions in the past, of course.
He was playing a different tune before that. Before he had access to the drugs again, when he was still lucid. Police have his taped confession. We have him saying the exact opposite to Mila soon after he arrives in jail.
I choked her out until she died. Until she was dead.
You that you were going to do that to me one day.
Mila, I was never going to do that to you, babe.
And I was worried that she was going back to Wade.
Hey, baby. Baby, can you just call me baby, though? You don't have to call me dude and stuff.
Yes, baby. I love you.
Yes, I love you, baby. How are you?
Instead, she was fleecing him for info with a reporter nearby. Love it.
What is going on? How did this happen? How did this happen?
I don't know, dude.
How did you do this? How? Like, tell me. I want answers.
You want answers? Well, remember when I went to that dude's house or whatever?
Well, then tell me what happened then. I just it.
Killed the...
Why, Wade? Why?
Because we went to this dude's house, Mila, and remember when he kept showing us the pictures? Oh, I got this, or whatever?
Yes.
So I went to his house and I did a lot of it. Like, he was giving me a lot. And I was doing a lot of it.
The girl?
Huh?
Why did you kill that girl?
I shouldn't have. I'm wrong.
Tell me what happened. Did you have sex with her? You went and killed her? What?
No, I didn't have sex with her. I killed her, though.
Why? Why, Wade?
Because I was freaking out on those drugs. Whatever he gave me must have been like bath salts or something else. It wasn't cocaine.
And these are some of the chilling statements that came from that conversation.
Any things that people remember when they kill somebody?
I killed her after I saw you.
Why? Why couldn't you just rob her? Why did you have to kill her?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Why? I kind of want to know why. What was going through your head when you're killing her? So I heard that you choked her out. She didn't die. She got up and ran her over with the car. Is that how it went?
That is, yeah, it is. She didn't get up and run. That's not true. I choked her out, pushed her out of the car, and then I ran her over with the car. But she said, then you never loved me to begin with, if you stopped loving me.
I didn't know you were a killer. I didn't know you could kill somebody.
You knew I was a killer. Stop it.
I did not know you were a killer.
So you thought all the story, you thought when I told you I'm a killer, I was lying?
Yeah, I did, actually.
Well, I wasn't lying.
And Wade's biological father also wasn't too thrilled with the conversation that aired.
So, yesterday when you called, she set your up. She had a news reporter there and had you on speakerphone, dude.
He would call and berate Wade for being so stupid, still showing great care for his son at this time.
I don't know why you felt the need to sit down and have conversations with these media people and go into detail like you did, because I'm telling you how it was received. It was received from everybody who has heard it, and people are posting all over shit, and they're commenting, and the news. You sounded horrible. You sounded like a straight liar. You were stumbling over your words. You were repeating things, trying to, come up with what you were saying. And it really came off bad, Wade. Really, really, really bad. You talk about, having sex with Kristen. You didn't even say her name right. You kept saying Kristen, and her name's Christine. So Kristen's the chick you're talking to now. So that really looked bad.
He sounds done, though.
Now you're claiming you need $8,000 for legal. You know how much money it would cost to defend your on murder charges?
Which I can totally feel after all this bullshit flying at you.
How did you feel about turning him in to law enforcement?
I initially wanted to help him.
Did you feel conflicted about giving him over to law enforcement initially?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point when you're talking with him, did that feeling change?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
I just thought, what if that was my mom or my daughter or sister or wife? I wouldn't want somebody to do that.
And did you have additional concerns of what might happen if you didn't turn him into law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
What was that, sir?
He would have done it again.
Did you encourage him to go outside and turn himself in?
I did. I didn't want him to do anything stupid and end up getting killed. So I just told him to put his hands up and just go outside.
And he told Wade the best thing that he could have, for Wade to just shut the f*** up.
And now, Wade, you're going to wear it because you're dumb. Can't keep your mouth shut.
Oh, well, you can't keep your mouth shut. You tell everybody everything. Listen, man, you tell everybody everything. You can't keep your mouth shut.
Say that shit, Wade.
No, that's the truth, though. You know how sad that is? That's the truth.
Don't give nobody my number.
That's the truth.
Don't give nobody the number because I tell the truth. You got this dumb who on the phone with me. You claim she ain't really a fat girl, Dad. But, she's borderline a fat girl.
Who
You
cares?
know how stupid you sound?
Who cares? You know the game. Why would you ruin my game?
That doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, though. As long as he has supporters, he will milk them for every ounce they have. From what I gather, he even has a leader named Jessie who is heading his fight. Supposedly, she's a high-powered lawyer, exactly what he needs. And it was she that Wade's biological mother was speaking to in the interview. It is all to get people on Wade's side to get him free. His mother now prefers to live in this fantasy. She prefers to think that her son is a far better person than the devil that he has become. But the death and sorrow that Wade has caused is a cold hard reality. Despite how much people want to believe that he was just this sweet guy, his past behavior betrays that. Time and time again, he has shown that he is an impulsive, self-centric man-child that is willing to throw a tantrum if he doesn't get what he wants. A pattern of violence is in full view for those who don't agree with him. And maybe this could have changed if he had just gotten help. Maybe this was just inevitable. Either way, I think Wade is angry with himself and the world, fighting back feelings of rejection that he had in his youth mixed with his own mental disorders to make it everyone else's problem. And he is in full knowledge of this manipulation. You can see it in how he changes his behavior. If he can get something from you, he's going to put the charms up. If not, he doesn't have the time unless you're willing to do it for him. The racist tattoos on his body are an exact representation of who he is.
God, I'm trying to listen to you. We got this guy in here in our dorm that's fucking. There's always that one guy that yells like.
I don't care right now, motherfucker.
Huh? You heard him, right?
I don't care what it, motherfucker, I don't care.
It's always listen, and I'm not listening tape, and I'm not being like racist or anything when I say this, but it's always a black guy.
Yeah.
They're always
I get it, I know.
top of their lungs.
Whatever, we'll get him his fix. This Don Juan is nothing but a 2-bit junkie and thief who can't get his shit together. He murdered 2 women who are actively making the lives around them better instead of ruining everything they touched. The Wade Special. He is a disease that makes everything worse. And it really grinds my gears that there are those willing to catch that virus. All because he looks like this. Hopefully I've done my due diligence in showing that this man is the exact monster that he claims to not be. He should not be helped, and he should not be let free. He, with premeditated thought, murdered 2 helpless women. Women who would still be looking after their families if Wade had not intervened. He interjected himself into their lives just so they could die. It is unconscionable, and you could be the next one. He has shown no signs that he will ever change. Please stop giving this killer money, and please stop giving him any kind of accolades and just let him rot in his jail cell. At least until his execution. There are far better things to spend your time and money on.